Do you smell that? That smelly smell. Smells. Smelly. Is that what I think it is? Oversimplified! He has returned. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that little skit at the beginning there. He has returned to us. He is back. After 5 months of being gone when the world needed him most, he has returned. The Napoleonic Wars, Oversimplified, Part 1, except this is a 2-part series, and they're each 30 minutes. Yes, the Napoleonic Wars have a lot to them, but 30 minutes for each part. That's a lot. That is a lot, so we're gonna go ahead and just dive right in and talk about the Napoleonic Wars. Knowing Oversimplified, I am going to guess that this actually is not starting when Napoleon rose to power. This is going to start with the beginning of the French Revolution in 1789. Was that the right year? It's been a while since I've, looked at the revolution. So, a little rusty, but it's one of my personal favorite parts of history. I don't know. I just find it very interesting and entertaining to learn about. It's just that I love my medieval history way more. So let's go ahead and just dive right in.
Okay, Mrs. Bonaparte, this is it. One last push, and we're done.
God damn it.
Congratulations. It's a general.
Woo!
Oh, and here comes the rest of the army now.
What?
Did you just say the rest of the army?
Oh no, that's La Marseillaise. That's the national anthem. God, it's not stopping. That horse looks fucking badass.
History is full of great conquerors, many with very impressive origin stories. For example, Alexander the Great was the son of a king. Julius Caesar came from an aristocratic family that descended from a goddess. Great conquerors don't usually come from relatively insignificant families living on impoverished islands. But as it just so happens, that is where our story begins.
That's a good point. That is so true. And it kind of also, I think you could argue that it represents the changing of the times and the shifting of, the world. Napoleon came from an impoverished place. Now, of course, it's not like he was bottom of the rung in society. He was not poor, necessarily. But still, he would not, his standing, his status, at this time period would not have gotten him to be able to do the things that he did if he had been born maybe even just a couple hundred years earlier, in medieval society, late medieval society, right? You needed certain social standing to be successful. Julius Caesar, if he had been born to a lesser standing, he would not have been able to lead armies. He would not have been able to become a consul. Maybe in the later days of when it was the Roman Empire, perhaps if he had been in a lesser social standing, he could have risen to that position. The later Roman Empire was just a confusing fucking mess, and a peasant was able to become emperor of Rome. I guess Eastern Rome. I don't think he was leader of all of Rome. I can't remember. Anyways, back to Napoleon.
In the early 18th century, the island of Corsica was a part of the Republic of Genoa, until one day Corsica said, hey, we're declaring independence, and it's probably not worth your time to try and stop us. So Genoa said, you're right, it isn't worth our time. Hey France, you want to buy this island? And France said, sure thing. And thus, Corsica became France, just in time for Napoleon to be born French.
Huh. Weird how time works.
Many Corsicans didn't appreciate their new
Baguette munchers, go home.
conquerors, however, and from an early age, Napoleon developed some fairly anti-French sentiments. Napoleon's dad, however, quickly embraced his new French overlords,
Bonjour, mon bros.
which created some tension between dad and son. Ooh, look at me. I'm dad. I wear powdered wigs and silver-buckled shoes, and I'm a traitor to the Corsican people. Go to your room, Napoleon. No, you go to your room, dad.
Standoff.
On the other hand, Napoleon adored his mother, who was definitely the disciplinarian of the family. And even though she would punish Napoleon severely,
Of course, you have to punish him severely.
he kind of respected that. But Napoleon's parents
That's called developing a kink.
wanted the best for their family. And since they were a very minor nobility, they were able to have Napoleon sent off to the shining lights and rat-infested sewage puddles of the big city.
Yep,
Napoleon
that's Paris.
went to military school in France. Okay, Napoleon, why don't you introduce yourself to your new classmates? Well, I'm Napoleon, and I hate all of you. Your farts smell like cheese, you can't pronounce the letter R, all you do is go on strike, and you call eggs oofs like a bunch of big dumb idiot dingleberries.
He does make a good point.
Okay. Thanks, Napoleon. I hope you like being bullied. And bullied. He was.
Yeah.
They picked on him for his Corsican accent, his family's lack of wealth, and it probably didn't help that he also had a bit of a chip on his shoulder, but he could hold his
What was the chip's name? Was the chip's name Chip?
own, and on an average day, might be found dishing out ratatouille sandwiches for breakfast. He spent much of his time
Ratatouille?
alone, and he loved
Sandwiches?
reading about the great conquerors of history. He learned about
God damn it. God damn it, oversimplified. Caesar's cookie recipes. 8-2, Brutus?
Julius Caesar, and he wondered if one day he too might have a pizza franchise named after him.
That is the true marker of whether or not you have made it into history. You must have a pizza chain named after you. Boomer humors.
He excelled
Fuck, I am a boomer.
at math and geography, and when he graduated at the age of 16, he was made second lieutenant in an artillery regiment.
Nice.
Now, second lieutenant might sound pretty sweet to a screw-up like you,
Oh.
but Napoleon had a little something
Oh.
called ambition. Stonks of it. And he wasn't
Stonks.
content being just
Ambition to the moon!
some junior officer. He wanted to rise the ranks. Unfortunately for him, that would be a little difficult. Well, Napoleon, I've reviewed your application. It's clear you're very skilled and would be a perfect fit for the promotion. And Simeon, you're just about the biggest idiot I've ever seen. Your test results suggest you have the mental aptitude of a senile earthworm, and in the part of the form where you list your experience, you seem to have drawn a picture of a gerbil giving birth to a shoe.
What if the shoe is giving birth to a gerbil?
But your dad is the Marquis de la Fayette, so you get the job. French society was just too closed off. Positions were handed out based on nobility, not talent, and the young Napoleon probably felt stuck. Wouldn't it be nice if, say, a revolution came along and changed all of that? Well, what are the chances? The French Revolution is here.
Wow!
Bastille toppling, head chopping, king popping. The revolution promised to do away with the old social hierarchy and make everyone a little more equal. Napoleon may not have cared much for the violent mobs, but if it meant he could rise the ranks, he was in. He began fighting to defend the revolution. He put down a British-sponsored counter-revolution in Toulon and got promoted.
Nice.
He put down a royalist uprising in Paris and
Got
got
promoted. Nice.
And as his military prowess became more recognized, he was even given his very own army.
Nice.
It was astonishing progress for such a young man of humble origins.
To the moon!
And Napoleon's wildest dreams were coming true.
So
But
cool.
Napoleon also believed he could increase his social status if he married an older rich lady. And so around this time, Napoleon went on the prowl. However,
Bonsoir, milady.
if some sources are to be believed,
Napoleon was so ugly, an overall sickly effect was created by his thinness and yellow complexion. My French accent there went in and out. Laura Perman.
he was a verified creep. He
Oh, that's not good, Napoleon. That's not good.
reportedly had terrible luck with women, and most wanted nothing to do with him. Fortunately, he eventually met Josephine, an aging single mother who was deeply in debt and needed stability. So she
Nice.
agreed to marry him despite finding him intensely disgusting.
Oh,
Napoleon, you dirty dog, you've done it. Unbeknownst to Napoleon, however, Josephine had a bit of a promiscuous reputation.
Oh,
Hey Napoleon,
that's a
I
good-
hear you're marrying Josephine. Boy, she sure is a great kisser. That's right. Hey, wait, what do you mean she's a great kisser? Hey Hugo, you hear Napoleon's marrying Josephine? Wow, she sure is a great kisser. Now hang on just a minute. Hey everyone, Napoleon's marrying Josephine. Oh yeah, she sure is a great kisser. She's real good at kissing. Wow, I'm pretty sure I kissed her just yesterday. Oh, for goodness sake, is there anyone here who hasn't kissed my wife? Yeah, you.
got him.
As Napoleon fell madly in love with his new wife, she fell madly in love with a man named Hippolyte. It wouldn't be
Hippolyte.
long, however,
Oh.
before Napoleon would leave home and go
That's
to
a French
war,
name, all
because
right.
While France was having its revolution, tensions in Europe were rising.
God, I love the mess that is the Holy Roman Empire.
Hey Austria, you'll never guess what we just did. What's that, France? I got 2 words for you. Revolution. We totally just socked it to our monarchy. What? Dude, the rest of us are monarchies. You've just totally threatened the balance of power in Europe. Now we have to worry about our stinky peasants rising up against us. I mean, holy hell, your queen is... Okay, France, this is pretty awkward.
I love the fucking mustache on the brain and the hat. I wish I had one of those
The
hats.
rest of Europe is probably itching to give you a wedgie, but you're not ready for a war yet. So you gotta be cool, man. It's absolutely crucial that you say something to defuse the situation right now.
Just do it.
Preposterous! I declare war. Sacre bleu! So France ended up
Oh my god, and we're only 7 minutes in.
at war with basically the rest of Europe, and the War of the First Coalition began. At first, France struggled, but then they started to do surprisingly well, and in many conquered territories, they began to establish sister republics, exporting their revolutionary ideas across Europe. In 17...
Yeah, so another thing that he's not mentioned, for most of European history, France was seen as the predominant military force. European continental military force. Like throughout, honestly, I would say maybe the moment the French kingdom really became a thing was probably when they became the dominant military force on the continent. England has had a good military that has been able to rival the French. But, you know, it's really only in one situation where, you know, it was only during those 100 years where the English really had massive success, you know. Battle of Avignon? No, what the fuck was that battle's name? I forget. The battle where Henry V fucking kicked ass. And it wasn't until the French would not be dethroned until Prussia kicked their ass in 1870. But even then, in 1914, when World War I was breaking out, the main German rival, the only German rival, the only nation that could really contend with the Prussian military in terms of, I guess, quality, was the French military. That was the only one that really came close to rivaling the Prussian military at that time. And then in 1939, when World War II broke out, the German High Command was extremely worried about facing the French military in combat, because the French military was still an extreme threat. They were still seen as the dominant military continental force. The British just had a navy. For the last like 500 years, they've really only had a navy, and then they, you know, used their colonies to, like, last 500, last 300, 200, 300 years, the British mainly use their colonies to supply the manpower. They don't really have that strong of a military presence. Well, they didn't really. Their strength was in their navy. The French strength was in their army, and here you see that. This is the French, despite them still fighting an internal revolution. Like, there are still issues going on here in France while this stuff is fucking happening. And they're winning. Like, the French military is one of the historically probably one of the greatest militaries ever. I would probably rank it top 5.
1896, they planned a three-pronged attack to take Vienna and knock Austria out of the war, with two magnificent armies in the
Jourdain
north to kick
Cameroon.
ass, and Napoleon in the south
Napoleon.
as a bit of a diversion. For the first time, Napoleon would lead a military campaign. This was his chance to prove himself, to be somebody. And what a general he proved to be. The army he was
Absolute
given
mad
were
lad.
demoralized, lacking equipment, and underpaid. But Napoleon
Twinkies
galvanized
again.
them with inspirational speeches, and he took them into Italy. He was outnumbered, and his campaign was partially meant to be a sideshow, but he made it the main show.
Nice.
While the two
What
northern
an absolute mad lad. An absolute Chad.
For being held back, Napoleon made staggering progress. In a signature Napoleon move, he masterfully split his enemies into two and took them on separately, knocking Sardinia out of the war and putting the Austrians on the run. At the famous Battle of Lodi, he was in the fray, aiming the cannons himself, getting covered in mud, and earning the total respect of his men.
What a
They
mad lad.
respected him so much that when he ordered an almost suicidal assault on the only bridge in town, his men threw themselves at it and took it despite fierce Austrian resistance.
Huh.
For Napoleon,
I foresaw what I might be. Already I felt the earth flee from beneath me, as if I were being carried into the sky. Yeah, alright, the ego maniac is already showing.
it was all he needed to confirm that he was the greatest human who had ever existed. Wow, Napoleon, you're pretty great at this military stuff. Just be careful your head doesn't get too big. What did you just say to me, you little prick? And that
God damn it.
As Napoleon swept through northern Italy, the Italians cheered his arrival. Yes, I'm here to liberate you from your cruel Austrian oppressors.
Woo!
And replaced them with French ones.
Woo!
Napoleon plundered as he went, sending riches back to France to help its economy, but also paying his men the first real money they'd seen in years. The Pope had
Woo!
been supporting the Austrians, so Napoleon briefly went to go give him a slap. And as he began to approach Vienna, the exhausted Austrians were forced to make peace, with Napoleon overseeing negotiations himself.
Sign the treaty,
He had
damn it!
just single-handedly knocked Austria out of the war. And by the way, he was only 28, so maybe it's about time you moved out of your dad's attic. In the
No, I don't want to. And this is in an attic, in my room.
Italian territories he had conquered, Napoleon established new French sister republics, even writing constitutions and organizing governments himself. Not
Huh.
something a general generally does. When he
No.
got back to France, he was hailed as a hero, and the extremely unpopular government were concerned he might get some power-hungry ideas. So they agreed he should go far away from France to Egypt, where he could maybe undermine British access to India. Napoleon was eager to win more glory, so he brought with him a team of scholars, and he was like, whoa, it's a freaky man cat. Whoa, it's a big stick. Whoa, it's an ugly horse.
Whoa,
it's a
Stumpy
stumpy
little manlet.
Hey, I'm actually average height for the time. But then British
God damn it, oversimplified.
Admiral Nelson came down and wrecked his fleet, and an Anglo-Ottoman force defeated him at Acre, so Napoleon abandoned his men and went back to France. His campaign in Egypt hadn't gone quite as planned, but one thing you should know about Napoleon was that he was a skilled propagandist. He published his own newspapers.
Napoleon makes Egypt cry for its mummy. What military defeats? Oh my god, there's actual words here. Napoleon Bonaparte, who's just an all-around mega fresh dude, landed in Egypt last July and embarked on an adventure for the ages. He uncovered hidden mysteries of the ancient world, such as a freaky cat man, a big stick, and an ugly horse. Experts say his expedition has left them contorting with joy. Some of the locals tried to oppose the French presence, but Napoleon ruthlessly crushed these savage brutes and won them over with gentle, compassionate love. Whichever narrative you prefer. What's that you say? You heard the hostile desert ravaged his army? British Admiral Nelson caught him with his pants down and the Ottomans gave him what for? Who told you that? The next time they have the gusto to spew such venomous falsehoods, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go put on the tightest hot pink spandex onesie you can find, apply grease to your Herculean limbs, look that sucker dead in the eyes and yell, I'm too hot to handle and too cold to hold. I'm the tower of power, too sweet to be sour. Hulkmania is like a simple grain of sand in the Sahara Desert that is macho madness. I'm the Macho Man Randy Savage, and I'm the World Wrestling Federation champion. Then pile drive that chump straight in the pavement and finish him off with your signature flying elbow drop. Continues on page 12. About the author, Steve. Reputable journalist with 8 years of experience, and definitely not just Napoleon wearing a fake mustache. Okay, that was enjoyable.
That sometimes exaggerated his achievements and even commissioned paintings
Napoleon exaggerated his achievements because of his massive ego? No, never.
that generally made him look cool. So when he returned to Paris, he was yet again hailed as a hero, and he began to get some power-hungry ideas. First, however, he had a bit of a problem to deal with. See, he had learned something shocking about his dear wife. Really, Josephine? This guy? I'm just as tall as him. I'm sorry, I swear. Now that you're becoming famous, I'll never do it again. Make sure you don't. I've never stooped so low as to cheat on you. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'll be in this room consulting my generals for the next 30 minutes. And by consulting, I mean boinking. By my generals, I mean this woman. And by 30 minutes, I mean 2 seconds.
Oh. Hold on. The 2 seconds is a true... Oh, no.
With his wife, Napoleon was then approached by a very influential politician who said he had an idea.
Emmanuel Joseph Seyes.
He wanted to stage a coup against the deeply unpopular government and needed the extremely popular Napoleon's help. And Napoleon thought that was just the darn tootinest idea.
I
The
agree.
plan was to trap the government and convince them to voluntarily give up their power. And here's how they did it. Hey guys, oh my gosh, quick! There's a dangerous Jacobin plot to overthrow you, which we definitely aren't just making up. Better get inside this cage so we can protect you. Okay. Gentlemen, we got him.
Woo!
In this case, the cage was an isolated palace outside of Paris.
Hold on. I want to pronounce this. Chateau de Saint-Cloud. Fuck. Chateau de Saint-Cloud? I don't know how to pronounce that last part with a French accent. Chateau de. My de is still good. Saint. I can do that at the very fucking least.
With no one around but Napoleon and his army.
Oh shit.
With the government inside,
That's a big
Napoleon
army.
then entered, and a pretty chaotic event ensued, during which the government didn't seem entirely sure what was going on, Napoleon's men didn't seem entirely sure what was going on, and Napoleon himself didn't seem entirely sure what was going on.
Why aren't they letting me
But
stage a coup?
thankfully, Napoleon's brother Lucien, president of the lower house, managed to regain control, and the remaining councilmen were intimidated into creating a new constitution.
Woo!
And thus, a new government was formed, this time with 3 consuls in charge. But after Napoleon did some rewriting, in the end, there was really only one man in charge.
Yeah.
The first consul. Him. And over the next few years, he worked to consolidate even more power, and essentially became a dictator in total control of France.
Is this how democracy falls? With thunderous applause? Padme?
By the way, he was only 30, so maybe it's about time you washed your disgusting bedsheets.
Fuck you, Oversimplified. They are washed. God damn it. They're nice and clean. They were washed actually yesterday. So, fuck you. Take that.
France was now ruled by possibly the greatest military leader of the time. Possibly the greatest? Or definitely?
Definitely
Well, now
the
was
greatest.
his chance to prove it. See, back when Napoleon was still in Egypt,
1 year earlier, booby trap. Rosetta Stone. Do not touch ancient Egyptians.
being Indiana Jones. Back home, France was in France, being France. They
As
had
France
conquered
does.
even more territory, and they were like, hey Piedmont, you get revolutionary ideals. Hey Switzerland, you
get revolutionary ideals.
And Rome,
You get revolutionary ideals.
Everybody
You
gets
get revolutionary ideals.
Oh, hey guys, nice sledgehammers. And Naples, very cool nail gun. You guys here to get some revolutionary ideas? As France was still
Oh my fucking god. Oh, I'm dying.
spreading the revolution, and with Napoleon busy in Egypt, the European powers felt the time was right
Oh.
for round 2, and the war of the Second Coalition began.
Nice.
And this time, their big bad boy buddy Russia was here to bang some French boys back to Bordeaux. And bang them, they did. France got blasted. But then
Absolutely
Russia pulled out
shredded.
after stalling in Switzerland. And now that Napoleon was in charge of the country, he was ready to start blasting right back. He took command of the army of the reserve, and he brought the fight to the Austrians. Now, there are many traits that made Napoleon a great military leader. I already mentioned one of them, how he was one of the boys and commanded the total
One of the
loyalty
boys,
his
that's
men.
what's most
But
important.
now we see a second reason, the element of surprise. In
Spooky!
1800, Napoleon moved to Geneva, and it looked like he was probably going to take on the Austrian forces in Germany. There's no way he'd be crazy enough to move his entire army south through the Alps as a surprise attack on the Austrians besieging Genoa. Oh, Napoleon's moving his entire army south through the Alps as a surprise attack on the Austrians besieging Genoa. Napoleon's crossing of the Alps is legendary, and you may have seen one of the most famous
Absolute
pictures
Chad.
of the general, popping a sick wheelie on his majestic stallion surrounded by dangerous mountain terrain. Of course, in real life, he made the crossing on a depressed mule. But that's not as cool. When he emerged in Italy,
Really?
the
Was it on
Austrians
a mule?
expected him to come break their siege. But Napoleon went for their supply line near Milan, forcing the Austrians to meet Napoleon head-on at the famous Battle of Marengo. The Austrians initially clobbered the outnumbered French, and they were like, hooray, we
Yay!
won. But then a few hours later, Napoleon showed up again with an even bigger army, and he clobbered
Yay!
them right back. Holy cow, this tiny little fun-sized French guy is running rings around us.
Hey!
I'm average fight for the time!
Jerk!
Then, after General Moreau's victory at Hohenlinden, Vienna was exposed, and the Austrians again sued for peace. Just like the War of the First Coalition, the Second Coalition ended in another French victory. But
Two for
in many
two.
ways, they both felt more like Napoleon victories. Only the UK remained at war
With the Napoleon in France, same thing, no difference. They're the same thing. A French victory is a Napoleon victory.
with Napoleon, and they were using their powerful navy to blockade French ports and were even seizing the cargoes of neutral ships.
Not the French
Obviously,
goods.
Everyone else
Not the
got pretty
baguettes.
pissed off that the British
Not the baguettes in the wine! Anything but the baguettes in the wine.
were interfering with their trade. So in response, they formed a league, and they embargoed the UK right back.
Oh,
Neutral countries protecting their own interests? That's offensive. So
Yes.
Britain went to Copenhagen and blew a bunch of stuff up, and the league disbanded. But because the UK's economy was pretty bust, they decided to sign a treaty with France in 1802. For the first time in a long time, Europe was at peace.
yay!
Congratulations, sire. You've achieved peace. Yes, Pierre,
But not for long.
I still don't trust those dirty Brits. Did you hear they've been calling me the Bony Man? What does that even mean? Keep
What
an
does
eye
that
on them,
mean?
would you? I can't, sire. Why not? Because they use NordVPN.
Oh, you
How would
sly
you like to spend
motherfucker.
crossing the Alps, defeating the Austrians, and Europe at peace.
Yay!
What
Peace!
a meteoric rise it had been for the young Corsican. He had just taken charge of a nation that appeared to be losing a war and turned it all around, securing French
Absolute
gains
mad lad.
in Europe. But there was now a big question. You see, throughout the chaotic French Revolution,
chop,
French
chop.
governments had struggled to keep the economy afloat. They often didn't have a whole lot of support, and they frequently came and went. Would Napoleon finally be the man who could stick around?
No.
Military victories were one thing, but could the general also govern? Spoiler alert. Yes. The
Yeah, he
economy's
could.
crumbling? Well, then
That
why
is
don't
true.
you have yourself a new national bank, currency reform, and improved taxation and welfare systems? The legal system is an incoherent mess? Well, then why don't we nicely wrap all those civil laws up into one new centralized legal code? Corrupt government officials? Throw them in the trash.
Yeah.
Bad infrastructure?
Throw it in the trash.
Women's rights?
Throw it in the trash.
Wait, really? Well, yeah. Unfortunately, while Napoleon was building on the equality of the revolution, he also largely scaled back rights for certain groups, and husbands had full legal control over their wives.
Equality for all. At least at this time, meant equality for men.
But come on, ladies. Maybe let men have a slice of the pie for once, okay? Napoleon further reformed education.
I love that picture of fucking Chris Hemsworth. That was good.
Ensuring a system based on individual ability, meaning now Simeon had to compete with everyone else, and Napoleon
Oh no,
could get the
poor
cream of the
Simeon.
crop to help him run the republic. But he wasn't just building on the ideas of the revolution. The revolution had led
Chop,
to a
chop,
lot of
chop,
chaos,
chop,
and
chop.
Napoleon needed stability. So he rolled back a couple things, most notably with religion. The revolution had pretty much kicked the Catholic Church to the curb, but Napoleon understood that since many French citizens still considered themselves Catholic, that could be a problem. So he
Yes.
came to an agreement with the Pope and brought back the
Didn't he punch the Pope in the face, or is this a different Pope now?
Church, only this time with some pretty hefty power limitations. He also ensured freedom for other religions, and is often noted for his positive treatment of Jewish people at a time of widespread anti-Semitism. But while all
While also France had been a very hot spot for that anti-Semitism throughout the medieval time period.
of this may make Napoleon sound like a pretty stand-up dude, it's good to note that he believed in religious freedom because he thought it was a powerful tool to keep the poor from eating the rich, or something like
Religion keeps the rich from being massacred by the poor. I don't know what the fuck accent that was. I don't fucking know.
that. Overall, Napoleon's aim was to end the chaos of the revolution and finally create a stable and prospering French republic. And in that aim, he seemed to be largely successful and generally popular with the people of France. He officially declared that the revolution is over, adding, "I am the revolution." Napoleon's head could be seen for miles. Of course,
Massive.
not everyone was happy with Napoleon's reforms. Conservatives felt he was too radical. Radicals felt he was too conservative. But since Napoleon was a dictator, opposition could usually be stamped out with some good old-fashioned iron fisting. In
Yep, as you
1804,
do.
Napoleon took one last major step. After some failed attempts were made to assassinate him, he wanted to strengthen his position and ensure his dynasty could live on after him. And so he decided being first consul for life simply wasn't quite enough. He decided he should become emperor. He held a vote asking the
Should
French people
Napoleon
if they were
become
cool with the
emperor?
idea, and they returned a definitely not rigged 99.9% in favor.
Totally not rigged. Napoleon would never rig anything. I would vote yes, obviously. There isn't a gun pointed behind my head. Napoleon is totally not behind me, pointing a gun at my head. He's not hiding behind the chair because he's so short. He can hide behind it.
The ball's on this man. And so on the 2nd of December, 1804, in an elaborate ceremony at Notre Dame, Napoleon was made emperor.
He crowned
The Pope
himself.
was even invited to attend, and normally he would crown an emperor. But to make sure everyone knew this wasn't some Charlemagne-style circular power division, Napoleon lifted the crown and placed it on his own head. Like I said, the ball's on this man.
Absolute
He
mad
was
lad.
now Emperor of the French. Well, Napoleon,
The French Republic shall be reorganized into the first, well, not first, into the French Empire. Cue Palpatine's theme or fucking whatever that scene was.
you were a general, then you became first consul for life, and now you're an emperor. Is it enough yet? Is your ambition finally satisfied?
No.
I don't know, Pierre. What comes after emperor? I would say god, sire. You want to be a god?
Yes.
Yes. I'll put it down under maybe. Okay, everyone. What the hell is going on? This Corsican guy
Russia,
showed up out
Sweden,
of nowhere,
UK,
and he's
Prussia,
kicking our
Austria.
ass. He's exporting the ideas of the French Revolution wherever he goes, and he just declared himself king of Italy and emperor. He can't do that. I'm the emperor. Oh, hey, fellow monarchs. I see you're having a monarch party. My invite must have got lost in the mail. I'll just set up a spot right here. Wow. You don't belong here, Napoleon. We're coming to take you down. I'd like to see you try. Oh, I'm so scared I just pooed my pants. Hey, everyone. I just pooed my pants. No, but I did just poo my pants.
Oh,
Before Napoleon had even
clean that
declared
up.
himself emperor, the British had already redeclared war on France because both sides had been violating their previous treaty. Napoleon immediately occupied Hanover and then began making plans for a great British invasion, partially paid for by selling a huge chunk of land to the United States.
Yay.
Napoleon gathered his army along the English Channel. But here was the problem. While Napoleon's powerful army would almost certainly obliterate the British on land, there was very little chance he'd actually make it across the Channel.
Yeah.
Because Britannia ruled the waves. This power dynamic would keep the two traditional enemies from engaging in much real direct combat throughout
Yes,
the Napoleonic
100%.
Wars. However, the British had something else up their sleeve. Copious amounts of money. They were willing
Well, yeah, they had a fuck ton of money at the time.
to throw cash at anyone who would go to war against Napoleon, and there were plenty of takers. Austria, Russia, Naples, and Sweden, hoping to put Napoleon's France back in its place, formed the third coalition against France. The coalition forces probably thought that this time they stood a chance. They
They
weren't
did not.
prepared for the total humiliation they were about to suffer. The War of the Third Coalition was Napoleon at his best. We've already learned two ways in which Napoleon was a
True,
great military
100%
commander.
true.
But here comes one of the biggest reasons. Speed.
To the
He had
moon!
reorganized his army into corps, which were themselves, basically, small armies. Each had their own infantry, cavalry, and artillery, and as a result, was able to act more independently. They spread out through the countryside, and by living off the land, rather than relying on heavy supply trains, they were able to move extremely quickly. Napoleon would traverse massive distances, outmaneuver his enemies, isolate them, and then move in for the kill, before they even knew what was going on. Lightning warfare, leading to total destruction.
Core system decisive action, live off the land, divide enemy armies, destroy enemy in a quick decisive battle. 100%. The Oversimplified is just fucking nailing this. This is just all correct.
Would you like to see him do it?
Yes.
Here we go. Part of the coalition's plan
I would
was
love
for
to
the
see him
Russians
do it.
to meet up with the Austrians and take on Napoleon together. Combined, they could turn the tide against him, so Napoleon needed to stop them from ever meeting. But he's all the way over in Boulogne. No problem. In a matter of weeks, Napoleon marched 200,000 men, in secret, encircling Austrian General Mack and capturing his entire army. A devastating blow.
50,000.
Napoleon later remarked,
I have destroyed the Austrian army by simply marching.
destroyed the Austrian army by simply marching. Next, he turned to face the approaching Russians.
Kutuzov.
Okay, it looks like the French are coming for us. But check this out. I've got an amazing idea.
What's that amazing
when
idea?
they approach, we run away.
Absolutely mind-blowing.
Sir, you're a genius. The
Goddamn
Russians
right
began
he
to
is.
retreat with Napoleon giving chase. And since his tactics relied on quick victories, this could be a problem, especially because the longer the war went on, the more likely it looked other countries may join the coalition against him. But Napoleon knew the Russian Tsar, Alexander I, was young and seeking glory, so he came up with an idea to lure him in. He sent him a message. What does it say? It says, "Hello, I'm just a little baby boy, and I'm very scared." Are you talking like that, or is he? He is, sir.
What the fuck? What the fuck?
Why is he doing that? I don't know, but it's very cute, helpless, and vulnerable. A little baby boy, eh? Very scared, eh? Cute, eh? Boris, get my crossbow. We're going hunting. The Allied forces turned to face Napoleon, who they now believed was in a vulnerable position. He was set up at Austerlitz, and to make it look like he was retreating, he had even evacuated the high ground. A thick fog set
Wow.
in, obscuring Napoleon's center as the Allies took the bait and set up on the heights. From there, they spotted Napoleon's very weak-looking right flank, and they descended the heights to go get it. Little did they know, it was exactly what Napoleon was hoping they'd do. The next thing they knew, a large French force was emerging from the fog, launching a huge central assault up the hill. They swung around, crushing the Allies, and as men attempted to flee across the frozen lakes, Napoleon ordered his artillery to fire on the ice, causing an unknown number to drown.
Oh
But-
my. That is fucking terrifying.
He told me he was just a little baby boy. What happened? He tricked you, sir. You mean I was the little
baby
baby
boy
boy
all
all
along?
along? It was Napoleon's masterpiece, and Austria were once again forced to make peace with France. Then, with the French conquest of Naples in 1806, the War of the Third Coalition ended as yet another Napoleon victory.
Woo!
This was the third
Oh.
time Napoleon had to
Had to punish Austria severely.
give Austrian Emperor Francis a good spanking. And so, with the peace treaty in 1805, Napoleon was determined to punish him. He was forced to give
Severely.
up territory, hand over significant compensation, and promised never to fight Napoleon again. For now, Russia, Sweden, and the UK remained at war with France, but none were able to offer much of a threat. And so, Napoleon got to work strengthening his grip over Europe. He gave out rule of captured territories to his family and friends, and most notably, he established a new confederation in Germany, with himself as its protector. Seeing his
Nice.
influence in Germany being wiped away, Emperor Francis acknowledged reality and officially dissolved the Holy Roman Empire, an entity that had existed for over 1,000 years. But it wasn't all good news for Napoleon. For one thing, Spain had earlier allied with France in 1804 because the British just couldn't help themselves from blowing up Spanish ships. And Napoleon hoped a combined French-Spanish fleet would eventually be able to
Not yet. Wrong way. This way.
invade England. Unfortunately, he received word that British Admiral Nelson had engaged his fleet at Trafalgar. Normally, naval battles looked like this, but in this case, Nelson did this. Was it because he was an idiot? No, it's because he was a genius. He successfully punched through the Franco-Spanish line and unleashed hell. His victory ensured British control of the sea, and his death during the battle made him a legend. Napoleon's
lad.
hopes for a future British invasion were gone. But not just that. Napoleon was also hoping to secure peace on the continent, but that wasn't looking likely because the Prussian king was under pressure from his wife. Frederick, he's established a confederation in our turf, and he told us he'd give us Hanover, but then offered it to the British. You have to declare war on him. What is it with you and war? What is it with you and being a cupcake? Go to war!
Oh, shit.
Okay. In October 1806, Prussia, with its famed military tradition, joined the coalition and declared war, beginning the War of the
Fourth coalition.
Unfortunately, Prussian King Frederick
Dumbass.
William III wasn't the smartest tool in the shed. Look at him over there, being all French. Makes me sick. Boys, we'll get him this time. But here's the thing. This time, we have to stick together. Do not under any circumstances face Napoleon by yourself. You all saw what happened to Austria. Hey, where'd Fred go? Hey, you jerk. Think you're some kind of big shot? Huh? Want to tangle with Fred? You don't got the cojones. We're screwed. Without consulting its allies, Prussia had gone ahead and sent Napoleon an ultimatum, demanding he move all his forces out of Germany. Now, some of you watching this video probably can't even wipe your own bum yet, but even you know, you don't just send Napoleon an ultimatum. Obviously, Napoleon went in for the kill. Prussia's army was quite outdated, so when they met Napoleon at the twin battles of Jena and Auerstedt, it wasn't even close. Even Marshal Davout's heavily outnumbered corps at Auerstedt sent the Prussians running, and Napoleon carried out a ruthless pursuit of his fleeing enemy, taking Berlin and within a single month decimating the Prussian forces.
Wow, in a
Frederick
month.
and the remnants of his army moved to the east. At this point, Napoleon's forces were pretty tired. Winter had come, and conditions were miserable. He anticipated both sides would settle into winter quarters, but Russia decided to try their hand at an unexpected winter attack. A series of brutal battles followed that took a heavy toll on both sides, including the vicious Battle of Eylau, fought in blizzard conditions. Men froze to death, and many deserted. The Russian artillery tore the French to shreds, and Napoleon himself was momentarily under risk of being captured.
I can smell him.
In the end, the French army was saved thanks to a legendary cavalry charge by Napoleon's flamboyant cavalry commander, Murat. After the horror inflicted on both sides, they decided it might be a good idea not to do any more fighting until after winter. Then, after winter came, and the fighting continued. The Russians were pushed back to Friedland, where Russian General Bennigsen made a bit of a blunder by positioning himself with the Aller River to his back. The French artillery were able to pin the Russians between the river and their concentrated gunfire, a major element in Napoleon's fighting style.
Innovative artillery tactics.
As they tried to escape. War of the Fourth Coalition. Victory, Napoleon.
Absolute mad lad. Wow, that was Napoleonic Wars Oversimplified, part 1 of 2. Tomorrow we will be looking at the fall of Napoleon, his invasion of Spain, as you can see on the picture, and then his attempted invasion of Russia later on. And then perhaps, I'm gonna guess also we will see Waterloo. I'm gonna guess we'll have his return. But yeah, this was as I predicted. It started with the revolution, his rise during the revolution, and then into the actual Napoleonic Wars. I think this was honestly exceptionally well made. It really shows that he did spend a lot of fucking time on this. This was really well written, well done. I'm just amazed. I think he covered what he needed to cover. Obviously, there is a lot more, but he has done the French Revolution in the past. That's one of his older videos, which I have reacted to. But obviously even that was oversimplified. The French Revolution is an extremely overly complex time period, and yeah, you know, there's so much that happened that it's very hard to explain even in an oversimplified way. But yeah, that was Napoleonic Wars. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.